Tim Petrowich for Dateline Marion, and our guest, as usual, is Marion head football coach Kerry Martin. And Coach, we're going to talk about a formidable opponent this week, but first, as usual, we'll recap last week's game and 62-13 win over Mount Vernon. You were up 48-0 at the end of the first quarter. It seemed like everything went your way in the first quarter.
We did. It's ball bounced right. Kids really executed well. They came out. They played fast. We had some penalties early that called back a long touchdown, and kids just bounced back and made the next play count. And I just thought we played fast. I thought our kids really came in at a high level, and after 4 weeks, the season and 4 pretty good opponents, I felt like our kids maintained that level. Even though Mount Vernon's record wasn't very good, I was proud of the fact they maintained a high level of play right on through the 4 quarters of the game.
And people will say, well, it could have been worse because you had those touchdowns called back. No, not really, because you scored on those possessions anyway. It wasn't like you got the ball extra times. But you did have a punt return and I think a long running play called back because of penalties. So probably if you had to look at anything you wanted to fix, that would probably be it, especially considering the starters really only got to play about a quarter.
They did. Some of our starters, they counted. They were upset. They only played like 9 plays, which, it's just the way it worked out. We had, as you said, a fumble recovery for a touchdown. We had a punt return for a touchdown. We had an interception return for a touchdown. And when that happens, it got to the point where the game score got out of hand, and we wanted to make sure we got our starters some time in the game, but then get them out and let the other guys play and kind of heal up a little bit. And it was a good night. I think a lot of our kids, all of our kids got on the field. They got to participate and play a little bit, and some of our kids contributed really well, even in the second and third quarters. It was a good night.
Have you ever had a game where you scored 7 touchdowns in 1 quarter?
No, to my knowledge, that's the most points I've ever been a part of in the first quarter of a game. It was a pretty dramatic first quarter for scoring, and and it was a long quarter. The quarter almost lasted an hour. It was almost. I know
when the clock stops every time you score, that happens.
And I think there are people in the crowd who told me they thought it was halftime at the end of the first quarter because it's just kind of the way it felt. I have a lot of respect for anyone that goes out and plays this game, and the Mount Vernon kids are football players, and Coach Goodhart is trying to build that program, and so we take it for what it is. It was a good night, and we were glad to win the game, but I still have a lot of respect for those kids from Mount Vernon who also love the game of football and are trying to play it, and they're young and they've got some inexperience, and the kids that are on that field are hanging in there, still playing the great game of football, so I have a lot of respect for them.
And you kind of feel bad because, the reality is that probably it wasn't that lopsided of a game. I mean, you had some of those big plays that if you take them away, you don't expect to get a fumble return and an interception return for a touchdown in a game. That's 2 touchdowns right there, and then all of a sudden, once that happens, momentum swings and players get down, and it's hard to recover from that. So it does, that kind of quick scoring does change the complexion of the game.
Yeah, I've been a part of that on the other side, and we've even here, when we a few years ago played Chatham-Glenwood in the playoffs, I felt like we were better than the score indicated, but things snowballed on us.
Right.
And they made I think they had an interception return for a touchdown, and then we had Henry Jones, one of our best players, got hurt on that return, and next thing you know, it just kind of snowballed. You're looking up and you're thinking, what happened? So I've been on that other side of it, where you're in that situation. The game just gets out of hand. The ball's not bouncing your way, and it kind of snowballs on you a little bit. So, but it was a lot of fun to watch the kids have fun playing football and being able to contribute. Get some of those kids that aren't starters on the field, let them play a little bit.
In the game, in the 1 quarter, the varsity got to play. There was some things that I noticed, and if I noticed them, they must have been obvious, so you certainly noticed them too, about the way they executed. Defensively, kids not over pursuing, staying in their spots, making some stops. Mount Vernon had -1 yards in total offense through the middle of the second quarter. And then the other thing I saw, we've talked about this, there's been signs of it from time to time. But again, I thought Caden Hilliard made that next step in turning the ball upfield and squirting through that little hole and finding, some extra yardage instead of trying to get around to the outside.
Yeah.
Those are things that you guys have been working on, and they continue to get a little bit better each time.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll add to that. Jake Schmidt was only 2 for 2 passing, but they were great throws.
Well, yeah, outside shoulder, out of the reach of anybody but the receiver.
That's right. And as you're watching football on TV on Saturdays and Sundays, and those are the throws that you want your kid to make. I mean, you're right. Outside shoulder away from the defender. He did it. He had another one called back on Blake Horner's touchdown catch, but I thought what I love most about it was Jake did it, and he stood in there and he took a shot. He took a shot on the boot pass and he threw back to X, and that's those are little things that you want to see your kids maturing into and playing into, hanging in the pocket, making some good throws, and I thought it was a good performance by him as well.
And you talk about Saturdays and Sundays; those are the kind of plays that they go back and they replay and they mark on the screen about how he did this right now, he did that right.
Yeah, it's all about getting more kids doing those little things right, and boy, when you put them together and you got 11 kids on a single snap doing the right thing, that's a good sign. And I love the fact that when our varsity kids, our starting kids, came out of the game, they stayed engaged in what was going on and cheered on the guys that aren't starters, future starters for us. I'll give you a quick example. We have a senior named Devion Hunt. He is not a starter. He's been a freshman player, JV player. He's now a senior in high school, and we just noticed every day on scout team in practice that he was getting better and better, and he got in that game and he did so many things right. I mean, as far as tackling and the angles and his pass defense, and it's just a satisfying thing to see a guy who's not a starter, but he still contributes every day to our success, and he has for 4 years now. And to watch him grow and become a better football player, now he's earned his way onto the kickoff team, and he's earning his way onto the field in games, in every game. Including the Althoff game this week, he'll be on the field as part of our kickoff team. So there's a lot of satisfaction in coaching that goes into seeing kids like Devion make that step.
Something else we've talked about is the fact that your offensive line is fairly young, and you've had some injuries on the offensive line.
Yeah.
So now in a game like this, for 3 quarters, you get those reserve linemen in there playing against varsity defenders.
Right.
How important was that?
Yeah, well, it's a big deal. I think we look back like last year when Jake Schmidt was a junior and a non-starter behind Isaac. We tried to get him in several games as quarterback, so his first start this year wouldn't be like, oh, I've never done this before. I think we've got enough snaps going into next year already where I've got some young players who have been on the field quite a bit. Noah Mofield picked off a pass. Jonathan Clarida got to start against Haywood County before he suffered an injury. We've got some guys. Wyatt Fox has been on the field for us as a varsity player. Dylan Cannell. So we've had a number of young players who got significant playing time. Clayton Bastian scored a touchdown, and I think he's going to be a significant contributor to our running game next year. He's playing some tight end right now, but just watching those guys get on the field and contribute and play in a varsity game and play a couple of quarters and get some snaps on special teams, it'll pay dividends next year.
The other thing we got to really mention before we get to Althoff is the events surrounding the game Friday night, the pink out, and the effort has raised so far, and I'm sure there's still money trickling in, but so far more than $20,000 to donate to employees of the district and to help with cancer and things like that.
That just topped everything off, to be able to go out at halftime, be able to watch the recipients of the monetary donations, to watch them receive that, to just see the crowd in pink, and to see the student section, and to see the something bigger than the game was honored. And afterward, watching the jersey presentations between families, it was a really good night.
We have to talk about it now. You're playing up against the top-ranked team in Class 4A, Althoff.
Right.
They were second in the state last year, and of course, a name that we're familiar with keys their offense. I looked at some numbers, and Jalen Bester in 5 games has 900 plus yards rushing. And even probably a more impressive statistic than that is that he averages 17 yards per carry.
It's pretty good.
It is. So what do you do to stop a guy like that?
Boy, that's a great question. We've been game planning for it. Obviously, you can't stop him. You have to try to contain him. You have to try to make them beat you with something other than him. Now, there have been game plans for Herschel Walker and Eric Dickerson over the years, and we game planned for Jason Ford for 4 years when he was a star there before he went on to Illinois, University of Illinois. We faced a lot of good backs here over the years and some Division I players. I don't know that you can stop any player of his abilities. He's going to, I think, the University of Miami of Ohio next year, Division I school. So, if my information's right, so here's a young man who's going to bring a great challenge to us. Our game plan is to try to contain him as best we can, limit those 17-yard runs, get a lot of people to the ball, and just play good sound defense with good angles. Got to tackle well, but it's a big challenge for us.
Well, and the other thing is that, he is the biggest part of their offense, but their quarterback, Trey Mosley, has thrown 11 touchdown passes to 4 different guys not named Jalen Bester.
Well, and they've got a lot of skill kids. I mean, they've got this running back that's almost got 1,000 yards in 5 games, and they've got a receiving core that is awfully good and awfully big. They have what we call an upstairs window, that they can throw into because they're tall and they can elevate. So offensive line's big, very big offensive linemen. So they present all kinds of challenges, and if you look at their scores so far this year, they have really been tough on their opponents. But we've played Althoff tough over the years. We had an 8-game winning streak against them going into last year, which I thought we played them pretty well until the pick 6 last year. We lost momentum, and they kind of took charge of the game the rest of the fourth quarter. But I feel like our kids are well prepared for this. I think we have a good game plan. I hope we can execute it. It's one of those things where we feel like we can execute some things, and of course you go into every game feeling that way, but it's a tall order, but we're excited about the challenge.
Well, and you mentioned something that I was going to bring up, and the fact that, I realize that Bester is very talented in 17 yards of carry, but you don't get 17 yards of carry if you got nobody blocking for you.
Yeah, that's true. And it's as good as he is. I'm sure the offensive line, you watch the film, they have a lot to do with it. I mean, it's the thing that they do what they do. They don't change week to week. They're gonna challenge you to stop what they do, and they do it well. And I'm sure they'll have a great game plan against us. But our defense has played really well this year, I think, and have been very opportunistic. And we're gonna have to make some plays, get some stops, and get some turnovers, and then capitalize on those opportunities for us to have a chance.
This has been a series. You talk about the last 8 or 9 years, and this has been a series that's been very, very, very strange.
Yes.
The first win in that 8-game winning streak, it's a close game right before half, and they're driving down the field inside the 1-yard line, and they fumble, and you guys scoop it up and run it back 95 yards for a touchdown. The next year they come here, and they're leading by 2 scores in the fourth quarter, and you get the throwback pass to from Terranius Stanley to Matt Brown. You get and then you get the late touchdown to win the ball game, scoring twice in the last 2.5 minutes. There have been, and then 2 years ago when you went up there, they were favored to win, and you hung a running clock on them. So there's been some really strange games in this series.
It really has. One year we had almost no offense in the game, but led 13 or 14 nothing at halftime. I mean, just on 2 defensive scores. There was a year here they drove into the red zone probably 5 or 6 times and turned it over almost every time in the red zone. And you're thinking they're going to score again, and they kept turning. I don't know. It has been a weird series. It's been an exciting series. We've had some comeback wins late on them. It's been a physical game.
And even last year, they scored twice in, I think, the first 4 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're leading in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then they got, like you said, the pick 6. So some games that it's like there's a full moon every time these two teams play.
Yeah, you would expect 1 or 2 strange games in the last 10 years. We've had about 8 or 9 strange games in 10 years. And very hard to predict as far as the outcomes. And even if you predict the outcome, I think the way the game ends up unfolding is not what anyone would predict. So I don't know. You just go up there. It's a crazy atmosphere. I love that old stadium, and we're always excited to go up there and play. And we take on the underdog status again this year, and we'll go up there and give them heck and see what we can do. But they're good, and they're on a nice run right now. They've really been pushing the envelope and getting to that title game, and so we'll find out what we're made of. Hopefully those early tough ball games we play will have us ready to compete.
And it's a road game, first time in 5 weeks you've been on the road, so a little bit of a different routine this week.
Yeah, it's weird. We've not been on the road since we went to Tennessee. And that seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
And here we are, week 6. We're finally back on the road, and we're going to be on the road 3 of the next 4 weeks with only 1 home game left, which is homecoming, week 8. And so, we look forward to hitting the road, and hopefully we'll have a good following. We always do, and it'll be a hostile environment for sure. And but we get a good fan base there and cheer us on.
And you're starting to get healthy. I noticed Hunter Milligan got some playing time last week, and what are what's the situation, for instance, with Malcolm Berry?
I think Malcolm Berry's back this week. I think Millie's back this week, so hopefully that'll shore up some things and give us a little bit of depth. Line-wise, we're still about where we were, and I don't think the line situation is going to change much. But just trying to stay healthy and get our preparation done without losing anybody else, and hopefully we can continue to improve as a football team and take the things we did well on Friday and build on those, and have a great showing at Althoff.
And you get to play on the Candy Cane.
We do. It's the most bizarre surface ever, right? But it is a unique silver and maroon turf color, but we've always played well there, so we're looking forward to it.
That's Kerry Martin. He's the head coach of the Marion Wildcats. They play Althoff this Friday night in Belleville, Lindenwood Stadium. For Dateline Marion, I'm Tim Petrowich.